Las Vegas. Our show is produced by the Green Alliance of Nevada, sponsored by MV Energy, and I'm your host, Stan Hannell, filling in for Paul Ira today. Also in studio today is our producer, Annette Bubach, who will be broadcasting the episode on Facebook Live. Listeners to this program who might have questions for our guest, Julie Chadburn, from the Clark County Water Reclamation District, can call into the radio station at 702-257-5396. That's 702-257-5396. And Julie, we were talking about the very intricate, elaborate process that goes into reclaiming water that goes down our toilets and actually purifying it and putting it back into the Las Vegas wash, heading over to Lake Mead, and it actually comes out cleaner than even the runoff water that from the rainfall that goes into the wash as well. So I'd like to just go through that process a little more detail. It's amazing what's done to make the water reinvigorated with there's certain chemicals, but what was interesting, when we had this preview tour last week, the very first step before you even go into processing is to get all the gunk out and separate the sludge out from the water. And so can we talk about that, just the first stage, and you'll get into this probably more later in the show about what not to put down the toilet. But that first stage is just trying to clean out the junk that people throw down the toilet. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Right. So there are things that come to us in our collection system that we need to take out of the water before we can treat it, because these items will harm our pumps. They could clog our system. And really our goal is to get the most amount of water back into our environment as possible. So our first stop really is what we call the headworks, and this is where we have screens that screen out a lot of that garbage, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
People do think that their toilets are trash cans and flush things that they shouldn't. And so this is where we screen those items out. And along with that, then we also take out some of the grit from the water as well. So your coffee grounds, rice, eggs, those shouldn't go down the drain as well. Those are things that we need to take out, otherwise it really does hurt our pumps in the system.
Yeah, that's a challenge. And so that first gate, it looks exactly like a big gateway, you kind of call it, but it's a big lattice with small openings so that the small stuff can get through. But it blocks things like toilet wipes, the cottonelles and things like that don't break down as much, and it all hits this big wall, and then you have this great big, it looks like a big rake that's like about 6 feet long or something like that, and goes down and dips in there and just scoops that stuff up, and you separate that out, and it's amazing that even gets recycled. So you basically filter it out, it gets channeled to a separate area. It's amazing the automation in this plan, how it all works. Another thing that was kind of neat too, as we were driving on the tour, is that you have this great big set of fans that are aerating the water as it's coming down and preventing, I guess, kind of pulling the odor out of the chemical, even up the street as it's coming down into your facility. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Right. So in addition to treating the water, we also treat the solids, and we need to treat those odors as well. We don't want those odors out into our community. And I think that we do a really good job. I'm sure that with a couple of exceptions, a couple of the rooms that we went into, visitors to our facility would really note that there are no odors. We have that connotation of it being a stinky place or a stinky job, but it really is not.
Yeah.
And we use biology a lot to treat our odors. So we do have big fans that draw the odors off of the collection system, as well as the different wastewater treatment processes. And that that air then gets pumped back up through what we call biofilters. And it's just basically bark that we grow an environment for microbiology that then eats the compounds that make the air smelly.
Wow.
So we use a lot of microbiology. It's a lot of free help in our system.
Right.
So we use that to our advantage. And
so all these little tiny organisms, they love that stuff.
They do. They thrive on it, and we keep an environment that that they like to grow in and to live in, and then they do the work for us.
Yeah, and I kind of was thinking of it like yeast, that these little things grow, and then you just keep feeding them, they keep getting bigger and bigger, and that becomes an active part of the treatment process that goes all the way through the system.
Yes, it does.
impressed. That's awesome. And so some of the chemicals, I was looking at them that you put into it, citric acid, vitamin C that we use, ferric chloride, salts, sodium hypochlorite, and then anionic polymers. That sounds like an interesting phrase. But and then also the microbiology little critters in there that are they create this active slurry, I guess, that is actually used. It goes on top of the sludge to help treat that.
Well, in our secondary treatment process, we again use microbiology to our advantage, and we have different aerated zones and non-aerated zones. So we make the environments rich for some of the microbiology
Right.
to then intake some of the compounds that we want to try to get rid of, and so again they help us. Then we also have the non-aerated zones. So it's really just, it's like a magic show, and it's really incredible to come watch. But again, using this the microbiology to do the work for us. That would normally exist in the environment. We just grow an environment that makes them, speed up and grow
Right.
more and more and more.
Yeah.
But that really is a really interesting phase of our treatment.
Yeah, and as you were saying, some of those microbes like air, some of them don't like as much air. So it's you actually kind of create your own little ecosystem that goes into treating the sludge and separating the water out, and that was kind of interesting. How that does, and then aeration. That was really interesting. Is that you're pumping a lot of air into that to get more oxygen back into the water, and also it helps, I guess, just with the overall cleaning and also for these microbes to keep them healthy.
Right. In our secondary treatment, the air that we pump in does, it helps us grow that environment for them. We also pump air into our solids treatment, and that's to help thicken the solids as we prepare that for disposal as well.
It sounds like you're in a factory and you're making this great big cake almost. The way it's going together. Yeah, that's amazing. So yeah, that's pretty incredible. And then also the interesting part is, after you take out all the particles and all that sort of thing, you need to treat it again and purify it, because you've still got some critters in there that might not be helpful to people who consume water. So there's an actual ozone and ultraviolet light part of the plant.
Right. So our final or tertiary treatment stage of the water is we'll send it through dual media filters, and it gets filtrated through there, so it takes some of those just last little bit of solids that have been left, last little particles. Then we'll either send it through UV treatment or into a membrane ozone system. And the UV system really just kind of scrambles the DNA and the bugs that are in the water at that point. To simplify things, it basically just shortens their lifespan without them
Right.
being able to reproduce, and they'll just die off. So we're not really sterilizing the water, we're just disinfecting it at that phase,
Right.
and then it's ready to go on its journey back into our water source.
And that was kind of fun to watch the operation. It's all automated right at that end, but you're using that ultraviolet system. The ultraviolet system's like looks like an array of lightsabers. It's these glowing wands that go into the water and purify it. So we'll talk a little bit more when we come back about the upcoming Waterfest, Clean Waterfest, coming up next Saturday.